There's been some question about how to start. A lovely woman and her daughter want to begin the process of beading. When you begin beading, nothing is set in stone. It's a creative process. However, there are questions that have been asked about how to start. I am one who does a variety of tasks. I not only work with the seed beads, but my expertise leans more into materials. I do a lot of contemporary jewelry, a lot of costume jewelry, working with different glass, those kinds of things. I am a collector of the things that become discarded, and I create from those. And I've done spill lots for many years. When you ask a question of how do you start, I suppose it's, what is your vision? What is it that you and your daughter want to make together? This is addressed to a party who asked a question. If it's with seed beads, I think one of the first things to consider is your visual ability. Seed beads can be very taxing if you have visual difficulties. I have found that my size of choice is 11/0, and that's in the Czech. My collection is in Prikosha, the old factory. The factory in Czech Republic has been repurchased several years ago, and they use a different type of finishes that many of their finishes don't stay on the glass. Glass is treated in different ways, and so when you decide, say if you want a seed bead, think about what size bead you want to use. In the collection that I have, in my main collection, I mostly have 11/0. However, because I'm a collector, I also have everything down to a 24, which is so fine that I have difficulty anymore using such things, but I keep those for creative purposes. Say if you need a small bead for an eye, for example, or if you're doing an element that has smaller features, I use those as additions. I don't bead an entire piece out of anything much smaller than 11. That's too hard for me. However, size 8 or 9s you still can get a hold of, I think. I don't know if 8s are so easy. And then they go way up into the size 6, 5, 4s. Those are like something that's very easy to see, very easy to work with. I have limited abilities, as we all do. And so, depending on the dexterity of your hands, your visual ability, these are things to take into consideration as you start beading. If you're beading with a young one and you're just learning, there could be a wisdom in choosing size 8. Size 8 is a larger seed bead, and it's a little easier for the dexterity of children's hands. Their vision often is wonderful, but their dexterity might be hindered by a small bead to learn. And if you're going to learn, and you're just starting out, beyond your seed beads, if that's what you choose to use, beyond your seed beads, you're going to need stringing materials. If you're beginning, you want to consider simple patterns, maybe learning how to do a daisy chain. Now there's seed beading that is a woven or a patterned, There are several different stitches of seed beading. There are many artists in group who are so proficient at peyote. You guys just blow me away. I do all kinds of different beadings, so I haven't gained expert skills in any one particular area. Like I say, my area of interest is materials. The other area of interest that I specialize in is ergonomics. I was in a wheelchair for 6 years. I've learned how to walk this last year, so yay. And my health is improving, so I'm back. Hello, I've missed you. You will also need a stringing, a strand to stitch with. Fireline 4-pound is a good one to start. I would say for having your thread match your bead size is important. Universal to me would be starting with the size 11 bead, and the beads come in all different finishes. Finishes can be an issue, and you don't want to buy cheap beads because the finishes rub off. Even expensive beads, well-made Tahos, some finishes could wear off. That's another topic. There's different kinds of seed beads. You want to think about what your aesthetic is. I'm old. I grew up with check, and I grew up with culling my beads. That means picking through it so that you're making sure you get all the same size, because glass is manufactured in such a way, the old style of glass, that there's imperfections, and I find that beautiful. I love imperfections. However, some of the stitches that you might choose to do call for accurate Tahoe or Miyuki. These beads are precise, and they have the ability to create in the right hands a fabric of beads, so to speak. It depends what you want to do. What kind of beadwork do you want to do? Are you wanting to make earrings with fringe? If so, I might suggest that in addition to the 4-pound fireline, that you acquire some 2-pound fireline. What that does is it gives you many pass-throughs, the beads, without having to break a bead by pulling the needle too tight through. It also causes a supple reaction to the fringe. If you're beading, you're going to be developing skills in tension. There's so many aspects to beading. But getting started, think about what you want to make. And then ask that question. Ask the question of group, how do I begin to make a fringed earring? Or what are the best materials for making a fringed earring? If you want to do peyote, my counsel would be to learn your stitches first, to do more simple stitches. It's sort of like embroidery to sewing. So is your stitch work in beadwork, in your beading. Beading patterns are based on stitches. There are many stitches that you can do. Some are more advanced than others. Peyote to me is advanced. I have trouble with peyote. I haven't put the hours and hours in, but if you're willing to choose what you want to learn how to make and then begin. There's a young lady in group, you see her little post, it'll say ta-da on her little posts. Now she's a great example for group. This young woman over the months, she began making just simple, I think she's using 2 needle, and over time she just kept doing that same action over and over and over. And you can see, if you look in the history of group, the improvement in her work. She focused on one item and or on one technique, and she worked that technique until now you don't even see her stitches anymore. She's just such a great example of the technique of learning how to do it. You cannot pick up a needle and beads and assume that you're going to have anything that looks like folks that have taken time to learn the skill. So being patient with yourself is good. Well, y'all, I hope you have a good day and that encouraged some of your hearts.